the way that we react to life, it's a personal thing. Not everybody goes through the same suffering or pressure that a particular event might have caused. We might even think that the example of a child, for instance, a child gets upset very easily, and he becomes very sad even if the parents, they don't buy an ice cream, and he or she thinks that they are very mean and life is actually very terrible. So for sure the lens through which we see our life situation plays an important role in the way that we overcome challenges. However, life is a constant changing experience, and very challenging sometimes, in the sense that, especially in our times where things change very fast, when our mind is constantly messed up due to the pressure that we receive from economical situations, from big changes happening in societies, difficulties in relationships. So the only thing that really comes down, the only thing that can help us to face life properly is actually our mindset. And this mindset is not something that it is actually a psychological mindset, because I don't believe in those kind of positive affirmation and positive hypnosis that some people promote as a way of achieving things in life and overcoming its challenges. I do believe that the only way actually to face whatever comes in our life is by having clarity. And we don't see things in their totality. We see things through our perspective, which is quite narrow, and it's quite limited. Because let's say, for instance, sometimes we have a big challenge in our life and we are not able to do something, or something that we really want doesn't happen. At the beginning it might sound like a big failure, something bad that it's happening to us. We might get angry with life because things are not going our way, maybe because we are sick for a very long time. But maybe due to the fact that we didn't do that particular thing, or we didn't have the particular health to embark into some kind of adventure, we end up doing something which is closer to us and closer to our inner calling, let's say. So even a bad, apparently bad phenomenon, event happening in our life can actually be turned into amazing possibilities. Of course, this requires a great deal of maturity, because as the example that I brought before of a child, when we are quite narrow-minded and totally focused on ourselves, little things, they seem to be very big things. So it really comes down to a sort of detachment from the identity and from the personality, from the body, from our conditionings. Because when we see everything only according to ourselves and things don't go our way, we get really upset. And this kind of upset mood doesn't really lead us anywhere. I know it might be challenging to face separation in relationships, changing, losing a job, or having some kind of health issue for a very long time. It is actually that might create a great pressure on ourselves. But the best thing we can do is actually optimizing ourselves, because like the example that I brought before, it's really a matter of how our operating system is working. So if this is working fine, the way that we react to things for sure is much different. And there is, of course, a different maturity that can approach and see things with clarity. And in my approach to life, a big change really happened through the qigong path, so through a qigong, let's say, path, where we start to bring the attention actually on something that is not strictly related to the external phenomenon, is not strictly related to the personality as well, because a good qigong practice or Gong practice really implies as one of the pillars meditation. And meditation is not something that is a particular exercise. It's more like a state of the mind. Again, another operating system within the human being, possible but rarely achieved due to the involvement that we have with the external phenomenon. So the Gong, the qigong practice, can help us to sharp actually our mind and not following all the things and the projections and the conclusions and the fears that keep popping up, especially when we are in stressful situations. And it can help us actually to maintain a more calm perspective even in turbulence, because at the end of the day, the goal of life, in my opinion, is to go back to that state of, let's call it unmanifested, or let's call it infinite, let's call it whatever you want to call it. But while we are here, we are constantly involved into this ever-changing play, which is doesn't go under our control most of the time. We can try to do things in life, but they are totally sometimes independent from our will. So the only thing we can do is actually improving ourselves. And in that sense, the power of the discipline at the beginning, especially at the beginning, to do kind of inner work and to become aware of ourselves, of our limitation, of the body stiffness, of the mind, the chaotic activity, of the unstable emotions. It might be a very painful thing to do, but that's why we require that kind of discipline at the beginning, to go into it and to stick actually with unpleasant circumstances to try to do something about it. But eventually this kind of process of staying with things as they are and actually accepting them and learning to open up to things and also be patient with ourselves while we try to get better, for sure leads to a change, progressive change, although it is an instant change. Because I'm saying these two possibilities because instantly we might get to a point where we are totally free from our fear conditionings, body problems, health problems, relationship problems, because when we touch the clarity, the deep, well, not really deep, because it's you cannot say it's deep or it is superficial, but the real essence, which is, call it presence, call it clarity, call it free from a state, free from conditionings, that it is available instantly, and it happens throughout our practice actually. Sometimes if we have trained ourselves, if we are not driving our practice to a specific goal, if we're just open to it. But bringing that awareness and that wisdom actually into real life while things are going falling apart, that's the difficult task. But that is actually when our realizations that we achieved or discovered through our practice starts to play an important role in the way we handle life. Because if we sit peacefully and we close ourselves into our bubble of mystical practices, and then we go in real life and life is falling apart, and we are not able to sustain that kind of clear and moderate approach, let's say, to things, it means that we are not really, we haven't really developed that much. Because when you want to check how a person is really, how much a person is really evolved, don't look for spiritual magic, don't look for superpowers, just look the way he or she handles life, when he's gaining and when he's losing. So keeping that fundamental state behind it. And another thing that I think I want to add, which is very important, is that because we don't know life, we don't know, we are part of a bigger infinite system of elements moving around where there is a great interconnection. Sometimes it seems that all your family members and people near to you are going to through the same kind of struggles with different kind of colors, but you can see like the whole thing is moving together, even in terms of humanity. When we go through these big changes that have been happening and still happening faster and faster in our human kingdom, let's say, we all go through those processes, but the ones who step back from life, actually, not by refusing life, but actually to see why we are still involved with this process, they have the chance to transcend even these difficulties. And if we rationally analyze what I've just said, that there is a bigger principle and we don't know why things happen in one sense, and even something that might look bad at the beginning, such as a divorce or losing a child, it might be a very painful thing to live, but might actually bring a great outcome just afterwards. And this is something that we might encourage to make it happen, or we might block. And this is up to us, because if we curse life, if we start to contract, if we start to be bitter, of course we will not understand the possibilities presented to ourselves. And life, the underlying force of life, is a loving fundamental process. And I don't want to use too much this word loving because it's misused, especially in the spiritual field nowadays many times. But let's say if something happens, bad things happen to us, but there is a good purpose that we don't see because we see life only from our individual perspective. Try to look back at your life and see if something like that happened. Maybe you wanted to have that job, but if you were going to take that job, your life was going to be ruined. And you realize that only afterwards. If we go into this kind of very practical approach into this matter, we may see that there is a principle that is playing for our evolution. And we evolved only in the measure that we allow that process of trust to be there. Because if we trust the process of life, even when it seems to be very difficult, even when we go through painful situations, when we are under stress, actually we have the possibility of discovering that force. And this, if there is a secret, it's just trying to be quiet, and not to resist to things in the way they are, resist to changes, resist to painful circumstances, but rather to embrace them and see actually what the good that you can take from it. Because maybe an health problem is not allowing you to go around and do things, or maybe an economical problem is not allowing you to travel and to enjoy the company of people outside and do activities. Maybe that's a possibility for inner discovering. That's a possibility for inquiring a bit more of what life is about. It's a difficult play, and I think we are all here into this play that becomes less oppressive, in the same level that we are less identified with ourselves. So life becomes more oppressive. The more life is oppressive, correspond to the more we are actually identified to our identity, to the way that we want things to go, to our mind movement, to our goals in life, and all the rest of it. We don't know anything. That's the best thing I think that we can do. We can just open up and surrender consciously while we do our work. And I think qigong, Gong or qigong is a great tool for that, because improving the way we see life, the way that our body is functioning, emotion is functioning, for sure, it allows us to react to the external world in a different way. So I hope this video was interesting. If you want to comment below and suggest some topic for the next one.